thought this would be an interesting thing to try. I watched Charlie Kaufman's latest film last night and haven't really let it sink in yet. Haven't gathered and processed all my thoughts on it. In fact, I don't think I even understood it by the very end with the sudden bait and switch that got pulled on me. And not in a negative sense by any means. Unexpected escalations are rather fascinating, as are unexpected inserts of any type of animation. I love the stop motion The Evil Dead as well as the It miniseries, for example. But the most unexpected of all, David Lynch homage, an out-of-the-blue tribute to Fire Walk With Me, is something I never would have anticipated, but of course I loved it. In fact, I'm pretty sure I loved the film as a whole. Its off-kilter narrative structure was refreshing. The way dialogue exchange was handled with those intercepting sentences as people overlapped each other was particularly refreshing in terms of conveying a separated sense of uncoordinated naturalism in the midst of a rather unnatural aura.
There you have it. The sheep.
What will happen to the lambs?
What?
What will
I
happen
don't know
to
what
them?
you're asking me. They're already dead, so what else can happen to them?
Well, I mean, will they be buried?
Probably be burned come spring, but they're frozen solid for now, so they're fine. No worries.
Jesse Plemons is quickly becoming one of my favorite actors, from that evil guy in Breaking Bad to a severely underrated talent, clearly carrying even more talent underneath those subtle expressions. Speaking of underrated, Toni Collette, man, seriously, she should have gotten way more recognition during the awards season of Hereditary, but I guess people really are such pussies. Speaking of pussies, look at this cat.
Oh, hi, Jimmy. Hi. Oh, it's all wet.
I loved the dog gimmick, used sparingly but effectively, as most memorable tidbits tend to be. I'm not sure whether the janitor character was an actual character or a materialized insecurity that becomes more prevalent in the flesh the more it seeps into the consciousness. But yeah, I enjoyed the uncomfortable awkwardness all the same. I didn't mention David Thewlis when it came to the underrated talents, but he was certainly one of the highlights for me also. Poking fun at the tragically comical absurdity of old age is always good fun in my eyes, which he pulled off impeccably. Tragedy isn't undermined just because laughs are warranted, especially when the predominant theme at hand deals with the ironic brutality of thinking more than doing. Speaking of that, I was thinking way too intensely during that climactic performance, so much so that I didn't actually catch any of the lyrics. When the film ended, unexpectedly so, I may add, I felt a rushed urge to rewind and rewatch that entire closing sequence to soak it in properly, but I stopped myself with the thought that I held the potential to let it affect me more deeply on a second viewing. I was just taken aback by all these stylistic choices covering up what I adapted to, as too many layers overlapped in quick succession, topped off with the David Lynch vibes catching me off guard in particular. So everything I absorbed at the very end was purely visual.
And I have made the most important discovery of my career, most important discovery of my life. It is only in the mysterious equations of love that any logical reasons can be found.
Anyway, that's all I've got for now, I think. As I said at the beginning, I haven't actually gathered and processed all of my thoughts, so in actuality I'm not even sure what all of them are. I didn't show my face in this segment as I didn't have access to warm water for the week, so I'm over here and there looking like this right now. As you can tell, I let some time pass. This is when I actually rewatched the film, at approximately this time. First of all, I feel dumb as hell now, considering the fact I considered that janitor's presence to be anything else other than Jake's older self. Sure, there can be deeper themes attached to his presence, but it is painfully obvious who and what the character represents. From the beginning to the end, it is quite blatantly confirmed. I'm pretty sure I did catch those details in my first viewing, but then somehow erased them from my mind after that conclusive mindfuck. I'm not quite sure, but either way, it's funny how certain details can be so harshly apparent on a second viewing. One of which was the worrisome exchange between the anxious girl and the young woman. What stuck in my mind was a warning regarding Jake, most likely due to the cliché connotations surrounding the overall aura of not only this scene but also what followed in the sequence. When in actuality, nothing negative was said or even suggested about Jake, only about time, everyone's true villain. That train of thought, or rather a misguided thought process, signified the overarching notion of actions manipulating thoughts instead of the other way around, as nature tends to act in contrast to whatever's planned or thought out.
How's the bird? Too sweet?
Yeah, it's sweet.
I always forget how sweet these are. A little goes a long way. I don't think I can eat any more of mine.
Oh, you barely touched it.
It's very sweet.
Yeah. There's a lot.
Well, I let even more time pass before getting back to more thorough reflections surrounding this film. I didn't watch it for the third time, but it did start popping into my head alongside Synecdoche, New York on a rather intense philosophical scale. Perhaps due to the sudden cravings for comfy romance that started to haunt me again for the past few days, coupled with the displeasure of receiving bitter hate in the midst of this successfully pleasureful Halloween season because, I guess, primitive people just cannot hold back from their primitive habits. I really am trying to not care about perceptions that I know ultimately hold no real value, at least for my perceptions of what constitutes as valuable, or at the very least worthwhile. But hey, I'm only human, and I just cannot pretend that all this negative energy doesn't affect me. Whether some of it resembles the truth or not is irrelevant, as any form of negativity simply gets in the way. Which is why I started thinking about this film again, or more specifically Jesse Plemons' character, Jake, who quite clearly is haunted by associative perceptions boosting his paranoia, or most of the time either quiet or loud awareness of very particular insecurities. These quiet and loud moments alike speak a certain truth about the human condition that tends to not only be shied away from, but also avoided completely whenever possible. People like to feel righteous as they pretend to fight for the lesser, as long as they warrant just the right amount of attention. Breaking that balance either way basically strips away the attraction of feeling righteous. Or just attraction in general, because any type of attraction essentially requires some type of excitement. Why bother yourself with someone or something when there's no excitement left? I'm as aware as I can be when it comes to my insecurities, but I don't want to be aware of the idea of someone getting tired of me. It's one thing to feel lesser in one way or another, but to feel tedious on top of that is just tragic. Especially when that tediousness is what breaks the balance and ultimately the connection. That craving for a concrete connection that somehow simply comes, rather than being found or forced, God forbid, has only intensified. With each passing day, the subconscious desperation pierces through the conscious sanity shields that keep things in check. And yeah, I feel like I am dependent on a certain kind of love. The missing ingredient that can be substituted on occasion, but ultimately is never found. As of yet, that is. Because you can't ever say never in spite of how many times you glance over the thought in your mind. Which is why I'm also dependent on optimism. Whether I'm alone or with someone, even a blurred sense of forced positivity helps me get through everything. You know how it is, giving people a benefit of the doubt because people are people, right? while taking almost the entirety of the blame on yourself first and foremost, so that you can at least partially eliminate the sadness of being disappointed by someone you love. It tends to be hard, infuriating even, but feels like the right thing to do as you decrease the suffering on both sides. Or so you think, at least. Actions tend to mean more than words, but that doesn't always have to be the case. We all know thinking is usually always more sincere than doing, and words likewise can encompass so much more than mere actions.
It's really special how devoted a son you are.
I'm glad to hear you say that. That makes me feel better. Sometimes it feels like no one sees the good things you do. Like you're just alone.
The wondrous nature of spontaneity has really lost its touch in this generation of anxiety, which is probably why people grasp so tightly onto random cravings that feel adventurous and thus all the more special, therefore prioritizing those cravings over traditional or actually, most of the time, just moral values. Anyway, I could go on like this forever. Time to get a grip.